Systematic supervision, a positive way to monitor common areas. This presentation is brought to you by Pleasanton Unified School District social workers and is primarily for staff who are providing supervision to students during non-classroom time, such as during lunch, on the playground, or blacktop, or during passing periods. Systematic supervision is a method of supervising students in physical spaces that will help decrease problem behavior, increase student cooperation, make your job less stressful, and hopefully more fun. Systematic supervision is based on research that has identified what works well when supervising students in common areas such as hallways, cafeterias, libraries, and other areas where students are making transitions or hanging out. Systematic supervision is the training component used to train campus supervisors on the PBIS framework. PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. Systematic supervision includes 4 basic skills. The first is being active so that supervisors know what is going on in the areas they are supervising. The second, being positive, is so that supervisors and students establish good relationships. This capitalizes on students' desire to be involved and encourages them to be cooperative and engaged. Next, responding appropriately to behavior problems. This means addressing the behavior with an individual student without getting distracted from supervising the group. Lastly, communicating with other staff and the students and parents. Communicating regularly with everyone builds consistency and trust and fosters cooperation. Being active means moving around constantly and unpredictably with randomized patterns so you can see where students are and what they are doing. Scanning with your eyes and ears so you notice positive behaviors and potential problems right away. When supervisors move and scan, they are more involved with students, are more able to encourage positive behavior, and can step in to prevent problem behaviors from getting worse. Being positive means creating a friendly atmosphere by being friendly and open yourself, making an effort to connect with individual students and the students in groups. These connections can look like direct general positive comments towards students, using student names when possible, connect positive comments to the character trait they are displaying, and being friendly, open, and helpful. Research shows when we reinforce appropriate behavior, students are more than likely to display the appropriate behavior. Always try to remember the 4-to-1 rule, which is for every 1 negative statement, you must give 4 positive statements. Through the PBIS framework, each school site has developed 3 to 5 positively stated school rules. The next time you are at your school site, please inquire what your school rules are and where you may grab a copy of the Behavioral Expectation Matrix. This matrix states what the expected behaviors are in different locations on campus. In addition to verbal acknowledgement of positive behavior, each school site has also implemented an acknowledgement reward system. We will review this on a later slide. When responding to problem behaviors, focus on the behavior, not the student. Concentrate on the problem at hand and try to resolve the issue privately when possible. Be respectful, speak in a calm voice, use simple, direct language, be consistent, and don't take things personally. All students have participated in classroom lessons which discuss the school site's 3 to 5 positively stated school rules. Therefore, when you notice a student who is not following the rules, please refer them back to the expectation matrix. This should allow for less back and forth discussion between you and the student regarding the school rule they may have violated. Referencing the school's expectation matrix should depersonalize the intervention. Also, please remember, a consequence for not following school rules does not necessarily need to be punitive. For example, at lunchtime, when students are running to get into the line first, have the student re-walk, thus resulting in the natural consequence of now being last in line. Remember, when a problem occurs, you must define the problem and give a direction, a correction, and/or a consequence. If the student is cooperative, acknowledge the student by giving praise. If the student is uncooperative, redirect and give the student a choice. If they then become cooperative, acknowledge them and then give them praise. If the student continues to be uncooperative, apply the 2-minute rule. Basically, the 2-minute rule is, if you cannot resolve the issue within 2 minutes, you may need to refer the student to the administrators, or you may need to notify another campus supervisor that you will need to spend time working with a student regarding problem behavior. This will notify your peers that they may need to cover your supervision area. Please ask your school site what their specific process is in the case of an uncooperative student. Systematic supervision will not work without communication. Please remember to use positive language over the walkie-talkie. Do not use student names unless there is an injury or a student needs to report to the office as a parent is picking them up. Encourage and support each other. Share best practices between each other. We will now be talking about interacting with students. Think about this quote. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach, or do we punish? Why can't we finish the last sentence as automatically as we do others? Part of your role as a campus supervisor is to be the teacher of positive behaviors. All students come from different backgrounds, cultures, and parents who may have different parenting styles than your own. We must acknowledge that these differences may not align with the school's culture and therefore need to teach students what positive school climate or culture is at school. On a previous slide, we discussed the acknowledgement reward system. This reward system provides a tangible way for students to be acknowledged for their positive behavior. Depending upon the school site, you may hand out a piece of paper which states the school rules, or you may follow up with inputting information into a Google form, which will generate an email home to the student's parents notifying them of the positive behavior. When acknowledging a student's positive behavior, state what the behavior is and tie it to the school rule. For example, when you see a student walking another student to the office because of an injury, say, "Thank you for walking your friend to the nurse's office. That is very responsible of you." Adolescents learn more easily when they feel heard, understood, and cared about. It is very natural for an adolescent to push adults away, refute adult guidance, and even disagree when it does not make sense. Think of an adolescent in your life, a child, sibling, niece, nephew, cousin. How often do you look at their actions and wonder, what were they thinking? Try to remember, a person's prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until age 25 and possibly age 32 for males. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for impulse control and organization of emotional reactions, personality, focusing, and organizing attention and complex planning, to name a few. Moving through these developmental tasks are necessary for an adolescent to go through. Even though adolescents push back, they still want adults to hold the bar high for them, listen and respond to them without judgment, and accept their beliefs and values, and to be responsive to their needs. Your role as a campus supervisor is to develop positive relationships from day one, so when a problem behavior arises, your interaction with the student will be more effective. On a daily basis, you should approach tables and reinforce positive behaviors and implement the following tips to improve behavior. As you will be working with students on a daily basis, please remember these tips to improve their behavior. Tip number 1, keep your expectations realistic. It is important to know the age level you are working with. 6th grade students can be very different from 8th grade students, therefore the expectations may be different. Tip number 2, plan ahead. If it is a rainy day, try to plan for the students you know will struggle with this. Some students have a difficult time with change. Some students need outdoor time to run. When this is out of our control, as a supervisor, you will need to be prepared to handle these situations. Tip number 3, clearly state your expectations in advance. Make sure students know what is expected of their behavior. Most classrooms have provided lessons for students, however, you may need to remind them. Make sure you have the student's attention when you provide the clear direction of what is expected of them. Tip number 4, offer limited, reasonable choices. When presented with a situation in which a student is not following the rules, present them with reasonable choices. For example, It is not safe for you to throw the ball at someone's face. You may either bounce the ball before it gets to the person, or you may choose not to play this game. Tip number 5, use when-then or if-then statements. A when-then or if-then statement is a simple instruction. For example, when you have thrown away your trash, then you may go out to the playground. Or, if you speak with an inside voice, then I will be able to answer your question. Tip number 6, catch your student being good. Acknowledge the positives and ignore the negatives as long as there is no safety risk. Tip number 7, stay calm. Often when you approach a situation with a calm manner, the person to whom you are speaking with will match the calmness. Remember, it is not personal. And finally, tip number 8, use neutral time. Neutral time cannot be found in the middle of a difficult situation filled with strong feelings. It is important to remember that neutral time can occur either before or after a child's unacceptable behavior occurs. You can talk about what happened earlier and talk about positive ways to handle problems in the future. Think about how you would approach a table of students during lunchtime using one of the tips, and connect it to the school site's behavior expectation matrix. Always be thinking of ways to engage with students before a problem behavior occurs. Thank you very much for participating in this presentation. Please remember to reach out to your school site and find out what the 3 to 5 positively stated rules and behavior expectations are, what the acknowledgement system is, and what the procedure is when a student is uncooperative.